prices in the country have consistently seen a steady increase since the beginning of the year, sparkling fears that consumers may end the year paying an all-time high rate per litre. Current figures from the pumps shows that the price of petrol and diesel, which were both selling at an average price of 4 Ghana cedis 7 pesos per litre in December 2020, are now being sold at an average price of 5 Ghana cedis 38 pesos per litre at the pumps as of the time of filing this report. From the beginning of the year, that is January 2021, fuel prices has not been stable on the market. It started from 5 Ghana cedis or somewhere below 4 Ghana cedis, 55 pesos down to 5 Ghana cedis, and then it's selling a little above 6 Ghana cedis, 56 pesos. I am with the head of pricing at National Petroleum Authority to help us understand what goes into the pricing system before it comes to the local market, the impact of the local or global market prices, and the effect it has on us as Ghana. You help me with what the authority do.
Okay, so MPA, National Petroleum Authority, is the regulator of the petroleum downstream industry in Ghana. The petroleum downstream industry starts from the refining of crude oil into finished products to its final distribution to the consumer at the filling station. So that whole supply chain is what we call the petroleum downstream industry. So we regulate all the activities within that whole supply chain.
Let's focus on your unit. You are the head of pricing at MPA. What do you do there?
So pricing, as the name suggests, has got to do with the price of a product. So in this case, petroleum products. So in Ghana, the unit ensures that the pricing of petroleum products is done in conformity with the prescribed petroleum pricing formula. So there's a formula that must be used to determine the prices at which consumers buy petroleum products here in Ghana. So our unit is to make sure that everyone is conforming with that formula in setting their prices.
Let's make us understand what goes into the pricing with regards to the use of the formula and all that, how you generate prices for the local oil markets.
So pricing in Ghana is done based on 3 key objectives, policy objectives. The first objective is to ensure that there's full cost recovery of investment through import parity benchmarking. This is quite complicated, but simply what it means is that any investor along the supply chain, which I mentioned, who invests into the industry, the formula that we use must ensure that that investor is able to cover his cost of supplying the product. So if you are, be it an importer, a refiner, a distributor, whatever role you play, the pricing formula must help you to recoup your investment. The second policy objective is to generate revenue for government through the imposition of taxes and levies. So if government passes or introduces any tax or levy that must be on petroleum products and is passed by government, we must make sure that the pricing formula reflects these taxes and levies. And then lastly, to ensure that there is uniformity of prices throughout the country. So you would notice that we have a mechanism called the Unified Petroleum Price Fund, which ensures this uniformity, so that the price of petrol in Accra is the same as the price of petrol in Tamale, even though you have to move the products from Accra to Tamale for the consumer to get it there. So you notice that even though we have deregulated and companies have different prices, a company's price in Accra is the same as in Tamale, the same as in Wa, the same as in Elubo. The Unified Petroleum Pricing Formula ensures that this uniformity is achieved.
Very well, but I read something about 3 key indicators: exchange rate, taxes, and margins. Can you enlighten us on how these things affect the price that will come out for the local market?
Okay, so now explaining how the formula works and how the price itself is determined. So the price is composed of one we call something called the ex-refinery price. That is the price at which the oil marketing company, for example, Gore, buys the product from the bulk distribution company. That's the company that either imports the refined petroleum product. That's the ex-refinery price. And then we have taxes and levies, and then we have margins. Putting all of this together, you get the ex-pump price. That's the price the consumer buys at. For the ex-refinery price, it's composed of the world market price, the cost of delivering the product into Ghana, which we call the supplier's premium, and then an exchange rate plays a role there. So when you add the world market price, which you call the FOB price, to the supplies premium, you have your ex-refinery price. It's usually in dollar per metric ton, so we convert it into cedis using the exchange rate. So that is the ex-refinery price. Once you have that, you add your taxes and levies, and then the margins are added, and you have your final price that the consumer buys at. The most volatile things in this formula I've mentioned to you is the world price, which changes every day, and the exchange rate, which also changes every day. Ideally, the supplier's cost doesn't change every now and then. The margins don't change every now and then. The taxes and levies don't also change every day. So even though we have deregulated, a supplier may vary his supplier's premium a little, but it's not something that changes like the world market price, which is changing on a daily basis. The exchange rate, as you know, also changes on a daily basis. So this is how the formula, this is the composition of the formula. So prior to July 2015, MPA or government set the prices. So MPA will compute the prices for all petroleum products and announce the price for each product at which the oil marketing company should sell the product. Because we did what we call price deregulation, MPA does no longer set the prices for these products, especially petrol, diesel, LPG, the most common product. MPA continues to set the prices for premix fuel and residual fuel oil, which are subsidized by government. Okay. Premix fuel is used by canoe fishermen. Residual fuel oil is used by industry for their manufacturing their boilers. So let's focus on the petrol and the diesel, which are the most common products. What we do is that the formula I mentioned is a template that they have to use to set their prices. That's the BDCs who import the product and the oil marketing companies who supply to the consumer at the filling station. The BDC sells at the ex-refinery price, as I mentioned. So in their formula, they have the world market price, which is a price benchmark. So it is known by all because they are price that are published on a daily basis. And then the supplies premium in that formula is deregulated, so every BDC will determine their own supplies premium. And also the exchange rate they will use to convert to cedis, they will determine that by themselves. So MPA will not announce that this is the ex-refinery price. Based on competition, if you are a supplier and you're able to import at a cheaper cost, your price may be lower than somebody who's not able to import at a cheaper cost. If you're able to get a better rate, exchange rate from your bank than another, it also have an impact on your ex-refinery price. Okay. For the oil marketing company too, the formula will show specifically what must be in there. So once they get the price from a BDC, which is the ex-refinery price, they put it in the formula. And then the taxes are determined, clearly stated. The statutory margins are also clearly stated. Then the marketer has a margin in the price build up. So they will also determine that margin. So in the marketers, for the ex-pump price, the oil marketing company will determine their own marketer's margin to arrive at their pump price. So that is why you see different companies having different prices these days, because they use different margins in arriving at their final price.
Okay, let's move to the top before we come to understand what the actual pricing means. What is happening on the global front? Because, for instance, from January, I read that a barrel of Brent crude is going for $50. Fast forward in October, September, thereabouts, is now selling a little over $80 per barrel. What's the effect of these prices on our local pricing here in Ghana?
So it's very direct. We've deregulated, like I said, so government does not determine prices. Mm-hmm. The price of crude oil and finished petroleum products, as they change, they have a direct impact on prices everywhere, as long as we are buying from the world market. We import our products. Ghana is a net importer of petroleum products, so we import almost everything we consume. Mm-hmm. So, and we are buying based on world benchmarks. So if the price on the world market goes up, you would see it reflecting at the pumps here. Now, what's happening in the world market, for which reason the prices are rising? You are aware that prices are based on demand and supply fundamentals. As long as there is more demand than supply, prices will continue to rise. And last year, because of COVID, a lot of economies shut down. There were lockdowns everywhere. So demand for oil really went down. And that's why we saw last year prices of oil dropping very low. This year, with vaccinations coming on board, economies are opening up. Everybody's finding a way to deal with COVID. So once economies are opening up, demand is coming back again. So that's why we've seen the prices rising from the beginning of this year. Aside that, the OPEC, which is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Companies, they supply the oil. Demand is rising, but they are not increasing their supply. They've been quite reluctant to increase their supply to meet the demand. So this supply-demand imbalance is what is really contributing to the rising price of oil on the world market. And it has a direct impact on us because, like I mentioned, the ex-refinery price that the BDC used to set their price is based on the world price, the FOB price. So that world price as long as it goes up, there will be an impact here. And because government is not subsidizing the product with deregulated pricing, we will keep seeing these changes. If the world price goes up, our price here will go up. If the world price comes down, we would see it coming down. So last year, for example, petrol started the year around 5.3. Because prices on the world dropped, we saw petrol dropping to as low as 4 cedis last year and ended last year around 4.7. And once the world market started, prices started going up this year, we've seen the impact here. So those are the reasons why the prices here have also not been stable and rising.
Meanwhile, the executive secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, Kanamwa, has expressed fears that the movement of forex could further cause the price of fuel to increase to at least 7 Ghana cedis by the end of the month of October, while insisting that taxes imposed by government on petroleum prices continue to play a significant role in the rising cost of fuel in the country. He said efforts must be made by government to address the situation to bring relief to citizens.
So with regards to the price reaching 7, as long as world prices continue to rise, like you mentioned earlier in your introduction, prices started around 5.7, they've risen to about 6.5 as we speak. As long as the world market price continues to rise, we will continue to see that impact on the pump today. So today we are around 6.5. If the world price continues to rise, definitely we are going to see the prices rising. So that is something we all know. However, on their call on government, MPA is not the fiscal policy maker for government. So we don't determine what taxes and levies are on petroleum products. So their call, I'm sure government has heard the call from COPEC to do something about the taxes.
Subsequently, the National Petroleum Authority announced that it has frozen the implementation of the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy on prices of petroleum products for the next 2 months. This was announced in a press statement issued by the authority's Corporate Affairs Department on Monday, October 11, 2021. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has granted the approval to zero the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy on petrol, diesel, and liquefied petroleum gas for 2 months. The statement issued by MPA said the approval follows the advice of the MPA to the Minister of Energy to seek government intervention to mitigate the impact of the rising prices of petroleum products on the world market on consumers. Prices of crude oil and refined petroleum products, according to NPA, have seen a sharp increases on the world market due to a rise in demand of oil globally without a corresponding increase in supply, particularly from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Because the pricing of petroleum products in Ghana is deregulated, charges in prices of petroleum products on the world market have a direct impact on prices at the pumps, the MPA further stated. It said, and I quote, "The outlook of prices on the global market shows an upward trend, and therefore there was a need to seek government intervention to lower levies to cushion consumers from feeling the full impact of these increasing prices." The NPA would work with the Ministries of Energy and Finance to quicken the legislative process to give immediate effect to this directive by the President. But how will these 2 levies be significant to the consumer if approved by Parliament? The Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Duncan Amua, explains why.
In front of me is the ex-pump price build-up for OMCs and LPG MCs effective 4th of June 2021. What you have, that constitutes the amount you pay at the pumps. The first item here is ex-refinery price. That is the actual cost of the product, FOB. If you were to import fuel, petrol or diesel, how much you got the fuel for, that will be taken care of at the first position, which is what we would normally call the BDC price. And then you come to second item, the second item is Energy Debt Recovery Levy, 49 pesos. Then you come to the third item, Road Fund Levy, So I'm discussing the levies now. Energy Debt Recovery Levy, 49 pesos. The third item, Road Fund Levy, 48 pesos. Fourth item, Energy Fund Levy, 1 peso. The fifth item, which is what the NPA, together with the Energy Minister and the President, clearly has done some work on to remove, is the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy of 16 pesos for petrol and 14 pesos for diesel also. And then you come to the sixth item, which is the Special Petroleum Tax. That is a VAT on the price build-up. That is also 46 pesos. Then you come to number 7, the Primary Distribution Margin, or PDM, 10 pesos. You come to Boss Margin, 9 pesos. You come to Fuel Market Margin, 5 pesos. So that will bring you to the ex-depot position, how much the fuel will cost. That is the ex-refinery plus these taxes that you pay in will bring you to the ex-refinery. Then you go to the next item, says UPPF, or Unified Petroleum Price Fund, of 30 pesos. Energy Sector Levy that was recently introduced of 20 pesos. Then you come to Sanitation and Pollution Levy, 10 pesos. So if you take out the first item of 13 of these items mentioned here, you have about 12 other items that are a creation of either statutes or what the industry itself has also agreed to do. And some of the numbers are quite significant, if you permit. The Energy Debt Recovery Levy, 49 pesos a litre. Road Fund, 48. Special Petroleum Tax, 46. Boss Margin, 9. PDM, 10. UPPF, 30. Energy Sector Levy, 20. So this is what constitutes the mix of taxes that you pay each time you buy a litre of fuel at the pump. But the only levy I know that the NPA, per their communication this morning, is hoping to remove is the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy. 16 on petrol, 14 on gas, oil, and then you come to LPG, 14. I do not know for a fact if there's been a subsequent statement announcing the removal of Sanitation and Pollution Levy, although we think that could also be removed at this point, that international market prices are surging. Now let's go to the Stabilization and Recovery Levy, which the NPA is, through the Minister for Energy and the President, seeking to amend or remove for 2 months. When you talk of Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy, this was one levy that was introduced long ago to take care of what you would call a fund, a stabilization, to create a stabilization fund, such that when prices are lower, we all contribute into a fund that serves as a buffer in times like these when international prices are heading south. And so we could have a fund that we could actually take money from and use it to support the importers or BDC who may be importing the products at spot prices or higher prices. Then there was another issue of under recovery during the time when prices were regulated. You remember some time ago, the government would set out the price of petrol, price of diesel, price of kerosene, price of LPG during the budget statement reading. So there were under recoveries that needed to be taken care of. So this was introduced basically to take care of the stabilization and the under recoveries. Now, fast forward to 2015, you enter a price deregulation regime. What it then means is that the government is no longer creating under recoveries for itself because it is not setting prices. Yet, the Stabilization and Recovery Levy was left, unscrubbed. Then the excuse you get in modern times is that, well, that is the money that we are using to stabilize or subsidize for what you call premix and other products that the government subsidizes. Unfortunately, those subsidies are being paid for by the trotro driver and not some fund that the government uses somewhere to subsidize premix.
Okay.
We have said that if you need money to subsidize premix, kindly go back to Parliament and create a premix subsidy fund that the trotro driver knows I'm paying 3 pesos or 2 pesos or 4 pesos for fishing expedition. Even with that, we still are of the view that if you decide to subsidize premix, which is fishing, you must be willing and be able to also subsidize for livestock, because it is not everybody that gets to eat the fish. Some will depend on poultry. Some will depend basically on other, fish meat. So go out there and put something that subsidizes probably something for fish stock and for meat, if that is the case. So we have argued over the period that the Stabilization and Recovery Levy should be scrapped completely. And so we are happy that the Energy Minister sees something with this and has also gone to the President to argue for it to be suspended, although we would have wished it was scrapped completely. But there are a myriad of taxes that, if we had done something about, could contain the increment we are seeing at the pumps. Our fear is that in a matter of 5 to 6 days, the pumps could go up by as much as 32 pesos again. So reducing by just 16 and 14 pesos, the fear is that we'll probably be coming back to the same squares and we'll even be doing worse off by the second week in November. We are indeed naked already. That fund and the use, the intended use of the fund, it has never been applied. If it was being applied, the last increment of 14 pesos we saw some few days ago, we could have found something to give to BDCs to say, okay, hold this and don't increase the refinery because we are willing to pay the difference because Ghanaians have contributed something to the stabilization fund. It has never been used. Now, we only collect these monies, and then the excuse is that we use it for premix. In 2016, when crude prices had reduced from the 50s region to 40 to 30 to somewhere 28, the government of the day had gone to Parliament to insist that because we also produce crude oil and we export same, anytime international market prices reduce, what happens is that the government revenue basket shrinks. So government said, look, we projected in our budget to probably rake in 5 billion from our crude exports. Now crude from 54 has dropped to 28. So Ghanaians should accept a tax, what we call the VAT on petroleum, special petroleum tax of 46 pesos, so that government could make up for the gap that had arisen between the 28 actual and the 54 that the government had itself projected to rake in order to be able to carry out its budgetary spending. Government of Ghana projects $57.858 for our crude exports. As I speak with you today, crude is hovering between $81 and $84. We projected 58. So there's a big variance, yet the tax that was introduced, the VAT that was introduced of 46 pesos is still on the price build-up as we speak. We are going for the low-hanging fruit of 16 pesos, whereas 46 pesos, which could have done something much more significant by way of bringing the prices down, still continues to be paid. So we're asking the president humbly to also go in there and instruct probably the finance minister to take a second look at these taxes. It is the only way we can be able to reduce prices to sustain what the Ghanaian is actually clamoring for at this point when world market prices continue to go up. And like I said, in 5-6 days, you may get another increment of almost 30 pesos. 16 and 14 is a good gesture, but I'm afraid it's just woeful at this point.
In a new development, the GPRTU has told Ghanaians not to expect much from the temporary removal of the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy, as that will not make transport fares go down. Again, the General Agricultural Workers Union says the removal of the Price Stabilization Levy and Recovery Levies on petrol, diesel, and LPG for the next 2 months would have a little or no effect on the prices of foodstuffs in the market, considering the fact that major food produce have to be transported over long distances to markets. The price of petrol and diesel ultimately play a key role in the final price of the produce. Gao says other major impediments such as bad roads, that links to farming communities to major markets, as well as the consistent increase in the price of spare parts, would have to be addressed in order to stabilize the prices of food. But if Parliament approves the proposal to zero the price stabilization and recovery levies on petrol, diesel, and liquefied petroleum gas for the next 2 months, will it ease the pressure on consumers? Well, I'm sure your guess is good as mine. For Adwa Business News, Nanya Makolison, Accra.